All right, hi everyone. It's Andrew here. I hope everyone's doing really well today. As part of our Simplified series in May 2018, already we turn to coding and STEM as the focus of this evening's webinar. We think of the month of May. It's a busy time a year as we start the descent into June, where we're looking at finishing up our school year with our students. But what I found when I was in the classroom was that the May time of year was always a great time to start thinking about what are some new things that I could start to look at, that maybe I could implement in my classroom next year. And so often what I would do is do a bit of research. Sometimes I would put lessons together and actually use the month of May and June as beta testing, as we say in the technology world. So it's a great time to actually just test things out and, maybe do a bit of refinement so that when September 2018 rolls around, you're ready to implement these new strategies. So again, Coding in STEM Simplified series, May 2018. Let's dive in. So I always like to start with, what does the journey look like? Again, these are very short tutorials. The big idea really is just bringing awareness, maybe providing some ideas around things that we can do around technology-enabled learning and teaching. And in this evening's session, we're going to look at why. So what would be the why? Why code and STEM? Why should I be looking at maybe implementing that in my classroom this year and maybe next year? We're going to look at where are some great places to start. So if I want to get started with coding and STEM, where are some places that are easy to use, that can allow for both the students and myself in the classroom to be successful when starting with coding and STEM. And then I'm going to show you how having a home online can be really important and make things really easy when I'm looking at doing things like coding and STEM, but maybe other things in the classroom also related to technology. So I'll show an example at the end of tonight's webinar. We start off with this great infographic that came across my screen on Twitter, and Jim Cash is the person who created. So just looking at, why do we want the kids to code? What are some of the reasons why? We look at students becoming comfortable with wrong answers. When we're doing coding, we're going to get a lot of wrong answers, and so it's just us being able to kind of work through some of those issues and look to solve problems. We start to look at language of coding, things like variables, learning how to write loops, use if-then statements also are part of coding. We talked about some of the wrong answers that we're going to have, or sometimes we're going to make mistakes in our coding, but it's all good, because when we make mistakes, we learn to debug errors. And so when we look at some of the reasons why, there's some more ideas over here on the right. We look at also finding right answers, exploring ideas, using coding and STEM to collaborate with others, looking at making the thinking concrete, being able to visualize a process, learn how to design, solving problems, creating something exciting. And one of the big pieces that I find which is pretty cool is just learning, where students learn how to control technology. So again, we think of today's generation, they've been, a lot of the students that we're teaching now were born with technology. They're really great at consuming it, but it's really great to see students in the classroom learning to code devices and, becoming kind of in control of what the technology is doing. So it's pretty cool. This is another cool visual here, again, around by Brian Aspinall, and I'll share later in the webinar some of the resources and a place where you can find Brian on Twitter. He is a great resource around coding. So this is his 10 reasons to teach coding. So feel free to take a look at these. What's great about, I find, when we look at coding in STEM, it doesn't have to be, I'm doing coding in STEM for all of these reasons. Pick an entry point. Think of something that you're trying to do in the classroom, and think of how maybe, incorporating coding in STEM can create a more rich, engaged learning environment for some of the students in your classroom. So again, I encourage teachers to kind of pick an entry point. It doesn't always have to be, I'm doing coding in STEM because of all of these reasons. Sometimes just starting simple is the best way of going about it. And then finally, we take a look at the competencies. So our global competencies, we're all moving towards deeper learning. And what I've encouraged teachers to do over the years is to start with the curriculum. Start with your overall expectation, and then maybe look at some of these global competencies and look how coding and STEM can really be a great way for students to develop these global competencies, learning how to communicate, innovation, creativity, critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration, self-directed learning. So again, we look at all of these global competencies, and when we're doing coding in STEM, it's really easy for us to target that and allow students to develop these competencies to better prepare them for the world of work for the future. So that's really great. At this point in the webinar, I'm going to now move to some online resources that I'm going to encourage you to kind of, again, we think of the webinar, so you're watching this and you're thinking, wow, there's all kinds of different ideas here being presented this evening. But again, if you can maybe find an entry point, think of just maybe one or two things that you see this evening in the webinar and start there. This is a perfect place to start. So the government, the Ministry of Education, has created Coding in Elementary, a professional learning resource for Ontario educators. So what is coding? Why should students code? Who can code? Where to begin? And you know what? This is great here. Sample learning plans and additional resources. This is something that often teachers will ask. So how is the coding in STEM connected to the curriculum? And so we can do coding with technology, but there's all kinds of resources here where it's coding without technology, often referred to as coding unplugged. So again, a great place for me to find the grade maybe that I'm teaching and look at some of the activities that have already been built. Another great place to go is cdsboblendedlearning.com, CDSBO codes. So if you scroll over here, you'll notice there's a little link here. And when you click on it, I've provided a little home online where you can go and find all kinds of great stuff to get started. So for the hour of code this year, this is something that we shared with all the schools. Again, some fun games that you can go to for plugged and unplugged activities. Teach Ontario is a community online. Lisa Floyd and Steve Floyd are kind of spearheading this, but it's a great place to go to get ideas and resources to get started in the classroom. Maybe you're a math teacher. There's some great research here around computer coding in the K-8 mathematics curriculum. So things that have been very successful. So this is a great read. Again, our 10 reasons to teach coding comes back. Next year in December is going to be the hour of code again. So some videos here on how to get that started. And feel free to look through some great activities. On the online platforms that are great to start with are code.org. And so code.org has simple courses that you can go to start with the students. So again, easy consumer-based activities where students can go in and it's all online. And then some ideas around Scratch and Scratch Junior. And finally, Minecraft. If your school is a Windows 10 school, we actually have Minecraft, which is available system-wide for all educators and students. So I encourage you to go and check that out. For more questions around Minecraft EDU, feel free to get in touch with me and I can connect you with our Minecraft team that we've put together. Another great place to go is makecode.com. And so as a board right now, we're currently supporting the microbit, and we also have Minecraft. So here with the microbit, if you go to code, it brings you into the online platform. And what's really great about this tool here is you don't even require a microbit to make it work. So I can go in to the projects area and I can go to projects, and here are all kinds of guided activities that I can use in the classroom with the students. So feel free to check this out. Another great thing to do is to, from now to the end of the year, maybe connect with educators in our board who've had a lot of success around coding and STEM. And so if you take a look, we have, again, on the website, cdsboblendedlearning.com, we have the CDSBO Tele community. So this is brand new. And again, the goal is to build bridges between all of our schools around sharing the great things happening around technology-enabled learning and teaching. So feel free to check this out. And so here are some teachers in some of our schools that are sharing different things that they're doing around technology on Twitter. And so I'm collecting them all here, and it's a great place for teachers to go and watch short little videos to see how teachers are implementing coding and STEM in their classroom. So feel free to check this out. Earlier, I talked about Brian Aspinall. So Brian Aspinall is on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, maybe you can think about joining Twitter. It's a great place to grow professionally, where you can learn and share the cool things that you're doing in your classroom. And so Brian Aspinall is really big in the area of coding and STEM, has a great website that you can go to also. And I'll just show you now. So again, brianaspinall.com. And this is a post where he's looked at 3 ways to engage students with hard fun. And so the first one here is just unplugged coding and resources, the green screen, and then making with Minecraft. So talking a bit about Minecraft. Lisa Ann Floyd is another person that you can connect with on Twitter. So again, a leader in the area of coding and STEM, and a lot of great resources and ideas and examples of how coding and STEM is being done in the classroom can be found on her page on Twitter. And finally this evening, as the last part of our webinar, is looking at how I can leverage Microsoft Teams and start to bring coding and STEM into the Teams environment to make the learning accessible for the students in my classroom. So if you're new to Microsoft Teams, feel free to check out, there's a webinar I did earlier in the year on Microsoft Teams. It's an amazing online classroom that's getting better and better every month. And so again, I can create channels. So you'll notice here I have a channel under the 21st Century Classroom called Coding STEM Microbit, and I've embedded that Make Code page. So students now can go right to their home online, and I can set up some fun coding activities for them to do right from the Microsoft Teams. So I hope you enjoyed this evening's webinar around coding and STEM. A lot for you all to digest, but again, the key is starting simple. And if you have any questions or if you need any ideas around where you can start with coding and STEM in your classroom, never hesitate to get in touch with me. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Take care.